I remember the exact moment everything changed. We were at dinner, a restaurant we both loved, candles on the table, wine we had been saving for a special occasion. It was the anniversary of the day we moved in together. 1 year of sharing a life. 1 year of waking up next to the same person. 1 year of believing I had finally gotten it right. William had made the reservation weeks in advance. He had ordered my favorite flowers for the table. He had coordinated with the chef on a special dessert. That was William, always thinking ahead, always making sure everything was perfect. He excused himself to go to the bathroom. I reached for my wine. His phone buzzed on the table. I glanced at it without thinking, the way you do when it is not your phone, when you are not looking for anything. It was a message from a landlord. I recognized the name immediately. It was my old landlord, from my apartment, the one I had lived in for 4 years, the one I had moved out of 12 months ago, when I moved in with William. The message said there had been a small gas leak in the building. Nothing serious, but they needed access to the unit to check the pipes. My old unit. William's unit. I put the phone down, picked up my wine, and when William came back to the table, I smiled. I smiled like nothing had happened. That was the last normal moment of my life. I want to start somewhere most people skip. Not the moment I found out. Not the apartment. Not the board on the wall. I want to start with who I was. Because that matters. Because understanding how I got there is the only thing that has helped me make sense of any of it. I was 31 when I met William. I had been working at an elementary school for 4 years. Administrative coordinator. The person who kept everything running quietly in the background. I was good at my job. I was good at a lot of things. What I was not good at was choosing the right people. I had been in 2 serious relationships before William. The first lasted 3 years. He was brilliant and distracted. Always somewhere else in his head. Always promising to be more present. Always finding a reason why right now was not the right time. I spent 3 years trying to be interesting enough to hold the attention of a man who was never really looking at me. The second lasted 4 years. His name was Rudy. Rudy was the kind of man people noticed when he walked into a room. Not because he tried, because he could not help it. Tall. The kind of face that looked like it belonged somewhere more glamorous. He ran his own company at 30. He spent his weekends in the gym and his weekdays closing deals. He was magnetic in a way that made you feel lucky just to be near him. I was near him for 4 years, and for 4 years I felt lucky. Even when he canceled plans, even when he disappeared for days without explanation, even when he looked at me sometimes like I was furniture he had grown tired of. The end came without much ceremony. He said he needed space. He said we wanted different things. He said I was too emotional, too sensitive, too much. I believed him. That is the part that stayed with me longest. Not losing him, believing him. After Rudy, I stopped dating entirely. Not dramatically, not as a declaration, just quietly. Because I was tired. Tired of choosing wrong. Tired of learning the same lesson in different apartments with different men who all somehow felt the same. I had my routines, my apartment, my independence, my niece, Lily, who was 6 years old and who I picked up from school 3 days a week. Lily was the best part of my week. She was loud and certain of herself in the way that only children and very confident adults can be. She grabbed my hand every time I picked her up, like I might disappear if she let go. My life was good, quiet, a little lonely sometimes, but good. And then William arrived. He had been hired as the new school counselor in September. Everyone loved him immediately. The teachers, the staff, the parents, and most importantly, the children. He had this way with kids, patient, calm. He remembered every child's name within the first week. He remembered their birthdays, their favorite subjects, the names of their pets. There was a boy in year 3 who refused to speak in class. Within 2 months of working with William, he gave a presentation to his entire class. His teacher cried. His parents cried. William just smiled and said the boy had done all the work himself. Lily adored him. From the very first week, she would come home telling me about Mr. William, how he had helped her friend who was being bullied, how he always had time to listen, how he remembered what everyone's favorite color was. She said once, with complete seriousness, "Auntie Elena, Mr. William would make a really good uncle." I laughed. I filed that away somewhere. We started talking in the hallways, small conversations at first, about the school, about the coffee machine in the staff room that never worked, about nothing important. He was easy to talk to, genuinely easy, not performing ease, actually easy. He asked questions and actually listened to the answers. He remembered things I said in passing and brought them up weeks later. After years of men who were half there, a man who was fully there felt like something I had never experienced before. He asked me to dinner 6 weeks after we met. Not casually. He had clearly thought about it. He mentioned a restaurant I had said I liked once, in a conversation I barely remembered. He had remembered. I said yes. That first date lasted 4 hours. We closed the restaurant. We stood outside in the cold for another hour, neither of us wanting to leave. He texted me when he got home, just to say he had had a wonderful evening. No games, no waiting 2 days to seem less interested. Just honest. I remember thinking, this is what it is supposed to feel like. Over the next few months, he became a constant. He sent flowers to my office on a random Tuesday, not for any occasion, just because he had walked past a florist and thought of me. 4 months in, he planned a surprise trip. I had mentioned once, just once, in a conversation about bucket lists, that I had always wanted to see the Northern Lights. I had been saying it for years. One of those things you keep meaning to do and never quite get around to. He had remembered. He booked everything. Flights, a cabin in Iceland, 4 nights. He asked nothing of me except to pack a bag. We stood outside in the cold on the second night, watching the sky turn green and violet above us. I cried. Not because it was beautiful, although it was. Because someone had listened. Because someone had remembered. Because after Rudy, I had stopped believing that was something I deserved. He met my friends at a dinner 2 months later. He charmed them effortlessly. He remembered everyone's name. He asked the right questions. My best friend pulled me aside at the end of the evening. "Elena, do not mess this one up." I laughed. I was not planning to. There were things I noticed, small things I chose to explain away. He called a lot, more than felt necessary. If I did not answer, a second call came within minutes, then a text. I told myself he was attentive. I had spent years with men who went silent for days. This felt like the opposite. This felt like being chosen. He asked a lot of questions about my past, my exes, why things had ended, what they had been like. I told myself he was emotionally intelligent, that this was intimacy. Once I mentioned Rudy, just briefly, in the context of explaining why I had taken a break from dating. Something shifted in William's face when I said the name. Just for a second, like a cloud passing over still water. Then he smiled and asked me what I wanted for dessert. I forgot about it immediately. 10 months in, William suggested we move in together. I hesitated. I had never lived with a partner before. In all my previous relationships, I had always kept my apartment, my space, my exit. But William was different. I knew he was different. My friends said they had never seen me this happy. Lily said he would make a good uncle. I said yes. We found a new apartment together, a fresh start, something that was ours. I gave up my apartment, handed in my keys, said goodbye to 4 years of my life, and I moved into something new, with a man I believed was the one. The first months of living together were good. William was a natural at domesticity. He cooked most evenings. He remembered which side of the bed I preferred. He bought the brand of coffee I liked without being asked. But things shifted, slowly. He started wanting to know where I was at all times. Not aggressively, just consistently. A text when I left work. A call if I was meeting friends. A message if I stopped somewhere on the way home. If I did not answer within a few minutes, another message would arrive. Just checking you are okay. He framed it as caring. I just like knowing you are safe, he would say, with a smile that made it hard to argue. He began making small comments about my friends. Nothing harsh, just observations. Your friend Sarah seems a bit negative. I worry she brings your energy down. I started seeing Sarah less. Not because he told me to, because it was easier. Because he had planted a seed and I had watered it without realizing. He did not like it when I stayed late at work. He did not like it when I made plans without mentioning them first. Once I mentioned a work trip that had come up suddenly. 2 days. A conference. His face did not change, but something in the room did. He said, I just wish you had told me sooner. I do not like feeling like an afterthought. I apologized. I had done nothing wrong, but I apologized. Each thing on its own seemed small. Together they were building something, but I could not see the shape of it yet. Because in between all of it, he was still the man who brought me flowers, who remembered everything, who had taken me to see the northern lights, who made me feel seen. That is how it works. The warmth and the control arrive together, so you cannot separate them. So when you question one, you feel like you are rejecting both. The restaurant was his idea. 1 year of living together, he said. We need to celebrate properly. He had chosen everything. The table by the window, the wine we had discovered together in Iceland, my favorite flowers, the dessert with our initials written in chocolate. He was wearing the shirt I had told him I loved. He had thought about every detail. I sat across from him thinking, this man loves me. Whatever small doubts I have had, whatever quiet questions I have pushed away, This man loves me. We talked about the year, about things we had learned about each other, about what we wanted the next year to look like. He said he had never felt this certain about anything. I believed him. Then he went to the bathroom, and his phone buzzed. I glanced at it the way you glance at something that is not yours, without looking for anything, without expecting anything. It was a message from a landlord. I recognized the name immediately. It was my old landlord, from my apartment. The one I had lived in for 4 years. The one I had moved out of 12 months ago. The message said there had been a small gas leak in the building, asking the tenant to be available for an inspection. The tenant. William. I put the phone down, picked up my wine. I looked at my reflection in the window. A woman at a candlelit table, celebrating 1 year with the man she loved. And I thought, why does my old landlord have William's number? He came back to the table, smiling, and I smiled back. We finished dinner. We shared the dessert. He took my hand across the table. He said this was the best year of his life. I said mine too. That night, I lay next to him in the dark, and I did not sleep. I listened to him breathe, slow and even. I thought about every moment I had explained away. The calls that came too quickly when I did not answer. The questions about my past that had felt like intimacy. The way he always seemed to know things before I told him. I had called it love. I had called it attention. I lay there until 4 a.m. Then I made a decision. The next morning, he left for work early. I waited 20 minutes. Then I started looking. I went through the apartment methodically. His desk, his drawers, the boxes in the storage room. And then the closet. It looked normal. Clothes on one side, boxes on the other. But one of the boxes did not sit flush against the wall. I moved it. Behind it, the back panel of the closet was not fixed. It moved when I pressed it. Behind the panel was a small space. Inside the space was a bag. Inside the bag was a key. My old key. The one I had handed in to my landlord 12 months ago. The key to my old apartment. I held it for a long time. Then I picked up my coat, and I left. My old building looked exactly the same. I stood outside for a moment, looking up at the window that used to be mine, the one I had stood at every morning with my coffee. Then I went in. The key worked. Of course it worked. He had been living there. I could tell immediately. It did not smell empty. There were dishes in the rack, a jacket on the hook by the door. A jacket I recognized. The living room was mostly bare. A chair, a lamp, a small table. But on the wall opposite the window, there was something that made me stop. A board. Large, covering most of the wall. And on it, me. Photographs of me. Printed photographs. Dozens of them. Some from my Instagram, some that were not. Me at the school. Me leaving this building. Me at a cafe I went to every Saturday morning. Me with Lily at the park. Me with my mother at a restaurant I had not mentioned to him. Me laughing with Sarah on a street near her apartment. I had not posted anything from that day. He had been there. Some of the photos had dates written in the corner, by hand. The earliest one was from 21 months ago. 3 months before we met. He had been watching me before he knew me. He had chosen me, studied me, decided on me, and then arranged to meet me. At the school where I worked, at the school where my niece went. He had not been hired and then noticed me. He had noticed me and then gotten hired. Next to the photos of me were other photos. Men. My exes. Under each photo, notes, written in his handwriting, neat, precise. Under the first X, emotionally unavailable, no threat. And under Rudy's photo, I stood there for a long time staring at Rudy's photo. Rudy, the man who had broken my heart, the man I had mentioned just once, the man whose name had made something shift in William's face at dinner. Under his photo was a single word: threat. Next to it, a small piece of paper, a newspaper clipping, folded once. I unfolded it. It was an obituary, dated 2 days earlier. Rudy, 34 years old, died in an accident, survived by his parents and his sister. I do not remember leaving the apartment. I do not remember the walk to my car. I do not remember the drive to the police station. I only remember sitting in a waiting room, hands in my lap, completely still. I told them everything: the apartment, the board, the photos, the notes, the newspaper clipping. They took it seriously. They sent officers to the apartment immediately. They told me to wait. I waited. My phone buzzed. A message from William. You and I are soulmates. I will never stop loving you. I was still staring at those words when the officer came back into the waiting room. His face told me before his words did. He was gone. The apartment was empty. His passport was missing. A bag of clothes was gone. William had disappeared. That was 1 year ago. He has never been found. The investigation is technically still open. Rudy's death was ruled an accident. There was not enough evidence to prove otherwise. There is still not enough evidence. I think about Rudy sometimes, about his parents, his sister, about whether they know, about whether knowing would make it better or worse. I moved apartments 6 months after it happened. New neighborhood, new routines. A therapist I see every week. I changed my name on social media. I made everything private. I Google myself sometimes to see what comes up. I do not know what I am looking for. Maybe just to know what he would see if he looked. Lily still asks about him sometimes. Not often, but sometimes. I tell her that Mr. William had to go away. She accepts that. Children are better at accepting things than we are. I think about the woman I was at that restaurant table, drinking wine, watching him walk back from the bathroom, thinking, this man loves me. She was not stupid. She was not naive. She was someone who had spent years being told she was too much and had finally found someone who made her feel like enough. That is the most dangerous thing. Not the obsession. Not the surveillance, not even the violence we may never be able to prove. The most dangerous thing is how much it felt like love. Because to someone like William, there is no difference. He was not watching me because he was disturbed. He was watching me because he had decided I was his. And to him, deciding was the same as loving. I check my surroundings more than I used to. I notice cars parked too long on my street. I look twice at strangers who look familiar. I lock my door twice before I sleep. Last week, on the anniversary of the day we moved in together, flowers arrived at my door. My favorite ones. No card, no message. It did not need one. I knew. He was still watching me. The end.